Hello, purplecon. Welcome to the final and most exciting session there is. So just to start things off, I want everyone to raise your hand if you've ever been part of an incident response effort. Awesome. And how many people of those have done part in a large incident? So more than 10 people in the team, more than 100 assets, more than 4 countries. Cool. You guys are going to be bored. So this talk is probably one of the most defensive talks in that, well, it's also special in that it does not cover offense or strict controls. This is what you do when everything has gone to hell. So all your defenses are broken, you've got hackers on your network, how do you actually handle that? So first up, don't panic. Simple stick, but it works. So who am I? So my name is Bryan. I've worked for 3 large household name companies in the last 7 years. So I've done digital forensics work and incident response for them, covering everything from Poland through to Hawaii. That used to be my territory, as one of 3 incident responders in the world covering that territory. And this is a system that we sort of used there, but now that I've moved to Google, this is a system we formalize. So what it is the incident command system. So in the 1970s, California was gripped with a large number of massive wildfires, and they had trouble controlling the command organization had difficulty working with the local field officers, keeping the situation under control. So they developed this framework called the incident command system. So what it meant is that firefighters at every level could ensure that there was a proper command, control, and communication at every level. So this, and how this worked for security is quite simple. Sorry, very nervous public speaker. But effectively it means that this can scale out from a small team of 1 or 2 people doing multiple team roles to having hundreds of people at every level, multiple shifts, multiple countries, multiple jurisdictions. So over the next few slides, I'll basically detail how this breaks down and how it works in practice. So you effectively have 5 key lead roles. Now these aren't individuals. This is not even a strict hierarchy of organization. In fact, it works best when it's not. But you effectively have your incident manager / incident coordinator / incident commander. I'll use IMIC interchangeably, but this is the main individual, and this is usually an individual that is command of the entire incident. Under that, they'll have their operations leads. They're the people that make sure that things happen. Then you've got your communication leads, making sure that stakeholders are kept informed at all levels. Depending on the size of your incident, generally for security incidents, you will definitely have a legal lead, especially with mandatory breach disclosure laws. Again, that may also be a team. And then you've also got planning. So the planning lead is a special one. Responders who aren't fed are unhappy. Responders that don't have a room to work in, have phone bridges that work, are unhappy. The planning lead takes care of that stuff. Making sure you've got working rooms, making sure you've got working phone bridges, making sure they've got food, making sure they've got the right equipment they need. And so their work is more continuous, even when an incident is not happening. So I pull them out specially because I don't have a specific slide for them, more because they're more a organizational function that exists across the incident, but generally they'll work very closely with the incident coordinator to make sure that every resource that is being used by the operations team has what they need to work. So the incident manager, the incident coordinator, owns the incident. Also, don't be afraid of the wall of text. This is mainly for people who are just downloading the deck. So they are largely strategic. They own the incident from a strategic point of view. They are aware of everything involved, but they are not hands on keyboard. They make sure that all the appropriate executives and stakeholders are identified and make sure that all the appropriate leads are assigned. But they also have responsibility to make sure that the incident is controlled. So they own the incident. effectively. So they are effectively the key stakeholder, the one that all the operations leads report to, and then they report to your executive stakeholders. And here's what it actually is. So you think you're going to be that nice photographer cutting up with wildlife. No, you're running spreadsheets. That's literally all it is running spreadsheets, making sure that green tick boxes are coming across as they need. The ops lead, they are tactical. This is where it gets a little more interesting for the model that we use, is that you can have multiple ops leads. What you may do is have a designated operations lead across the incident, and then have sub-ops leads for each shift or each pool of resources. And I've got a slide further on that's like, so it's an organisational grouping for a larger incident. So what you may end up having is where you have an ops lead for your Sydney shift, an ops lead for your Zurich shift, then and then they have their sub-resources that are site-specific. Then the ops lead report back to the key operations lead and the incident coordinator at your handover meetings. So that way you maintain an operational rhythm across multiple shifts and time zones. Again, one part of what they do is tactical, but they are also not hands-on keyboard. They are not an analyst. But the thing we've also found is they don't have to be the same person every time. So that could be one of your lead analysts filling the operations lead role for that shift. That way you cycle people through from analysis to incident management, incident leadership. And you keep cycling that through the team, and that way you have the skills across the team. So they know that when they need to make their report up to the ops lead, they know what they're going to need in advance. And again, what you think it is, what it actually is. And I need to thank a colleague for that photo. But again, it's all spreadsheet driven. So the ops lead is the one that will have the literal sheet of here's every artifact, here's every asset, here's every account, here's every machine. So their job is also planning the remediation. So you do that as you go. You keep very detailed asset tracking sheets so you know everything the attackers touch, everything's identified, the status of every single analysis. And ideally you keep that as one key sheet, but it's owned by the ops lead, so that you don't have double handling. So on this also, so for analysis, one thing we've found is your analysts have a scribe with them. So this could be a senior and a junior. The idea is the key analyst is doing their work, going through the machine, and the scribe is making sure that all the findings are documented clearly and continuously. You don't have to do it this way, but we've found that it works really well, especially for larger, more complicated incidents where you need to churn through a large number of machines quickly. You can do much faster if you've got two pairs of eyes on the out data, because it also means that they may see something that one of the other person's missed. It's also an awesome learning experience for your junior staff, so it helps bring them up much quicker. Big instance of fun. So then finally we have the communications lead. So this person is responsible for making sure that communications are handled. For most incidents, generally the incident coordinator can do this role, but if you need to engage external support, for example, press, this should be a dedicated communications person who knows how to deal with the press. That also may be a regulatory requirement. This role, it should not be discounted either. It's one of the most important ones, because they also make sure that your stakeholder meetings run smoothly, because they make sure that the information you're presenting at those stakeholder meetings is consistent and clear. Because you're not just reporting facts to them, you're also reporting findings, etc., but also messaging the data appropriate to the audience that you're communicating with. So both internal and external. But they also handle the communication, the questions that those stakeholders will be presenting back to you. So they are effectively a form of external interface for you, so that the teams responsible for the analysis don't have to take any questions or be bothered by outside influence. So they're like a shield in many ways, but also means that external parties have a key point of contact, and that point of contact is consistent, which it helps, especially for larger incidents that can go on for months. So at a glance, this is how it works. So you've got your incident manager, you've got your primary operations lead, your comms lead, your planning lead, your legal lead. Those legal and planning and comms may have their own sub-teams, again, depending on the scope of the engagement. If it's legal and it's a large breach, that'll definitely be multiple people. Again, but they have their own reporting structure. And for this one, we've got vendor liaison. So a lot of companies will have to deal with third parties. They'll have vendors looking after equipment for them. So here we use the sub-role of the vendor liaison or account manager acting as the ops lead for that team. So again, everything funnels up to them, single reporting line. No one does double handles. When it's all said and done, however, you then need to deal with the postmortem. This is the most important part. The most important keyword here is also blameless postmortem. Do not point fingers. It does not work. So you focus on what went well, what failed, and where you got lucky. So these are key findings you can then use to make sure that this doesn't happen again, also to improve your process. Especially the how can we prevent/detect this in future. That feedback loop is critical to making sure that this process runs better, but also the security posture of the organization as a whole works better as well. And when you're working on this, you focus on how did the process work well? How could the process be improved? How did the organization fail? It's never an individual or even an individual team unless it's malicious. If it's malicious, okay, cool, call them out. But that will be 1 in every 10,000 events, hopefully. But another thing, especially if you're doing this quickly, is how comfortable was everyone in their roles? So do personal feedback on each person, how they felt the process worked, and then refine it from there. Because this is not one size fits all. The version I'm presenting here is sort of a mix of different companies that I've worked with and how they work. This isn't like specific to an organization. So you do need to model this specifically to the people in your org. So again, general incident feedback. Every case is a unique challenge. Have a plan and stick to it. Have playbooks for this and practice them. Tabletop exercises are beautiful for this, especially because then you can also involve key stakeholders like executives. Bring them in on a tabletop exercise and run them through it. It'll make them much happier with this process, especially when they've got to read a postmortem that says, here's why we will breach for 10,000 accounts. But they can also feel happier in that, okay, cool, we'll breach, we've dealt with it, and it's all done. Practical advice, this is mainly for the people in the deck. Eat, sleep, and take breaks. The incident will still be there when you get up. This is also part of the planning lead, and also a good operations lead will make sure that people don't overwork, because that kills analysts. Watch out for unintended or well-intentioned helpers. This is more just general incident response advice. These are people who think, like the operations team, that, oh, they found malware on the server, so they ran an AV scan and deleted the malware or re-imaged the box before you had a chance to get to it. So keep an eye out for them. And again, plan remediation as you go. Keep those asset lists up to date. They will save you so much time, especially during wrap-up. So at the end, don't panic. And I am Bryan Nolen on Twitter, such an original name. I'm on Keybase if you want secure comms. And I'll be around all weekend for questions.